Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Lollipop and today we're doing a comparison video on the different bikes offered in Trek's Roscoe lineup. I'm going to go over all the main differences between the Trek Roscoe 6, 7, and 8, covering all the things that will affect how these bikes handle on trails, and hopefully help you guys figure out which one is the best for you. Now the Roscoe 6 had some pretty big updates for 2021, while the other two bikes had less updates, so to make this simpler, I'm only going to be talking about the 2021 Roscoe bikes. However, if you are looking into getting a 2020 model, I have made a full comparison video highlighting all the differences between the 2020 and 2021 bikes, so hopefully that video can help you out in understanding some of those changes. Additionally, I'm going to keep this organized by focusing on a different component on these bikes at a time, such as the drivetrain, the wheels, or the suspension, so you can clearly see what changes between the models. I'll also include tables at the end of this video that show all the differences and details in one place. But before we get into it, I'm going to give a quick background on the Roscoes. The Roscoe bikes are basically Trek's mountain bikes for people who are looking to have a lot of fun on trails. They all run on 27.5 plus size tires for better traction on trails when you're dealing with a lot of twists and turns and other obstacles. They're also designed to provide more control and stability on rougher terrain. The Roscoe 6 is more oriented towards beginner riders who want a more capable mountain bike with fun geometry and for people who possibly have a higher budget, as these bikes do start at more than $1,000. The lineup continues to get better until we reach the top-end Roscoe 8, which is a bike that can be pushed hard on trails and is designed to inspire and support experienced riders and beginner riders to have the most fun. Now there are women's versions of all three bikes, but the only differences they have are a more comfortable women's seat, some different color options, and a slightly different frame that actually still has the exact same geometry specifications as the men's frame. Therefore, I'll just be focusing on the men's bikes in this video for simplicity. I also won't be covering all the color differences in this video since I've talked about them in my 2020 versus 2021 comparison video, so if you are interested in the colors, please check out that video as well. But with that stuff out of the way, let's get into the comparison. I'm going to start by talking about all the similarities between these three bikes so we can focus on what actually changes between them later. The main thing shared between these bikes is the frame. Every bike in the Roscoe lineup uses Trek's Alpha Gold aluminum frame with internal cable routing and a tapered head tube. I'll throw up a picture of the specifications on this frame now, but there's too many to go through all of them in this video and they have not changed since 2020. All the Roscoe bikes also share the same pedals, dropper post, seat, handlebars, and grips. I won't go into all the details on these components since if you get a Roscoe, you're going to get these no matter which one you choose. Now let's talk about what you actually have to decide between when getting a Roscoe. The things that differ between these bikes, besides the price, are the suspension forks, brakes, which include brake rotors, wheels, which include the hubs, rims, and tires, and drivetrain, which includes components like the shifters, cassettes, and cranks. That's a lot of differences, and actually more than the Excalibur and Marlin bikes, but of course I'll try my best to simplify everything in this video. Starting with the price, the 2021 Roscoe 6 comes in at $1,050, while the Roscoe 7 costs $1,260, and the Roscoe 8 costs $1,790. The suspension forks all use Boost 110 spacing with lockouts so you can lock the suspension in flat areas, but the Roscoe 6 uses an SR Suntour XCM32 coil spring fork with 100mm of travel and a 15mm through axle. The Roscoe 7 upgrades to the RockShox Judy SL air fork with 120mm of travel and a 15mm Maxell Stealth axle. The Roscoe 8 has a RockShox Gold RL debonair fork with 120mm of travel as well, and the same 15mm Maxell Stealth axle for added stiffness and stability. The Roscoe 8 also has a motion-controlled dampener which allows for even better dampening on the trail. The upgrade from a coil fork in the Roscoe 6 to an air fork in the other models is a big one, since air forks are lighter and more adjustable for your weight, but they do become stiffer the more they are compressed. And then the upgrade from the Roscoe 7's air fork to the debonair fork in the Roscoe 8 is a significant improvement as well, since this adds more efficiency to the fork in general as it decreases the suspension travel in flatter areas and provides extra support. Then we have the brakes. All the bikes come with hydraulic disc brakes with 160mm rotors in the rear and 180mm rotors in the front, but the Roscoe 6 and 7 use the Shimano MT200 hydraulic disc brakes, which come from Shimano's Alivio group set, and they use the Shimano RT26 brake rotors from Shimano's Altus group set. The Roscoe 8 uses the Shimano MT500 hydraulic disc brakes and the RT56 rotors, which both come from Shimano's Dior group set. The rotors only slightly differ in terms of installation, but the Roscoe 6 and 7 use entry-level brakes from Shimano, which should work well and are reliable, but the Roscoe 8 upgrades them to the Dior group set brakes, which should work a bit better. Moving on, the stem is different between models as well, with the Roscoe 6 using the Bontrager Alloy 7° stem, while the Roscoe 7 and 8 both use the Bontrager Rhythm Comp 0° stem with Trek's knock block system. All of these are 60mm long, but the knock block system prevents the suspension fork from turning and hitting the side of the frame, but this can be an issue in really tight corners, but it does allow for a lighter bike and added stiffness. Now we have the wheels. Starting with the hubs, all the front hubs use Boost 110 spacing and 15mm through axles, while all the rear hubs use Boost 141 spacing and 5mm quick release axles. The Roscoe 6 and 7 both use a Formula DC 511 front hub and a Formula DC 2241 rear hub, while the Roscoe 8 uses a Bontrager alloy front hub and a Formula DCL 141Q rear hub. Now I say this often, but I don't personally know too much about these mountain bike hubs, and even trying to find any information on them online is surprisingly difficult, but they do seem to have very similar measurements. And typically, as you upgrade your hubs, you'll see better components and bearings that allow the bike to engage quicker and pedal easier and faster. For the rims, the Roscoe 6 uses the 32-hole Alex MD35 rims, which are 35mm wide, while both the Roscoe 7 and 8 use the 28-hole Bontrager Line 40 rims, which are 40mm wide, to provide extra grip and stability on the trail. Additionally, all of the rims come tubeless ready and have Presto valves. The tires are also different between bikes, but all of them are still 27.5 by 2.8 inches. The Roscoe 6 uses Kenda Havoc 30 TPI tires, while both the Roscoe 7 and 8 use the Maxxis Recon tubeless tires, which are 60 TPI. The tubeless tires are definitely better since they remove the risk of inner tube punctures from thorns or sharp objects, and you can run them at a lower tire pressure for added comfort and grip. The TPI basically tells you how many threads are used in the tire, and a larger TPI means the tire is more flexible, weighs less, and can be used at a lower tire pressure. Now, one thing I will note is that Trek sometimes does switch out the tires on their bikes to other brands like their in-house Bontrager tires, but since these Maxxis and Kenda tires are the main ones in the pictures of these bikes, I chose to highlight them instead. And finally, we have the drivetrain. In order to make this simpler, I won't be covering every single part in full detail, but I will still include tables at the end of this video that will show every specification that Trek provides on their website. Starting with a general overview, the Roscoe 6 uses a Shimano Dior M4100 1x10 drivetrain, which is Shimano's entry-level drivetrain for serious mountain biking. The Roscoe 7 uses a SRAM SX Eagle 1x12 drivetrain, which is SRAM's entry-level drivetrain, and the Roscoe 8 uses a SRAM NX Eagle 1x12 drivetrain, which is a step above the SRAM SX. The 1x12 drivetrains are generally preferred by serious mountain bikers, but if you are a more entry-level biker or just want a fun and capable bike at a better budget, the Dior in the Roscoe 6 is a fine option. But for the specific components in the drivetrains, I will go over those now. The shifters progressively get better and are different depending on how many gears the bike has, but how they feel is more dependent on personal preference, in my opinion. The higher-end SRAM versions should shift quicker and smoother, but the Shimano Dior allows you to downshift 3 gears at once, while the SRAM shifters allow you to upshift 5 gears at once instead. There doesn't really seem to be a large difference in feel between the SX and NX shifters, but the NX does have a different design and weighs less. The rear derailleurs are also different depending on the specific group set the bikes come with, but they all have long cage designs to accommodate a wider range of gears in the rear cassette. Generally, the higher-end models will be quieter and work faster in terms of shifting gears properly, but they all do come with a clutch system to provide tension on the chain, so there's less chance of the chain skipping gears or falling off the bike. The cranks progressively get better and lighter as well, but they do all have boost spacing. The Roscoe 6 uses a 28-tooth FSA crank, while the 7 uses its respective SRAM SX crank, but the Roscoe 8 actually uses a Descendant 6K Eagle crank. Having 2 more teeth on the cranks, upgrading from 28 to 30, should allow the 7 and 8 to have a higher top speed when pedaling. And the last component I'll talk about is the cassette. The Roscoe 6 uses a Shimano Dior M4100 11-46 tooth 10-speed cassette, while the Roscoe 7 uses a SRAM PG1210 Eagle 11-50 tooth 12-speed, and the Roscoe 8 uses a SRAM PG1230 Eagle 11-50 tooth 12-speed. The more expensive models have more teeth on the largest cog in the cassette, which should allow for easier pedaling uphill. And one final thing to know is that the weight of the Roscoe 7 and 8 are pretty similar at around 32.5 pounds, while the Roscoe 6 is heavier at almost 35 pounds. But with that, I've covered all the components that make the Roscoe 6, 7, and 8 differ from one another. I'll give a summary on these bikes while I show some tables that simplify what I talked about, but basically the Roscoe 6 is the more budget version of the other two bikes, but it definitely will serve that purpose and still be a fun bike to toss around on trails, while the Roscoe 7 is better suited towards people who don't mind spending a little bit more to get some better components that will help make your life a bit easier on the trail in terms of comfort and speed. The Roscoe 8 is definitely a bigger jump in price from the other two, but it does come with a lot of different components and upgrades that should help it be a very good performer on the trail. And that is all for this video. If you enjoyed and this helped you out, please leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment below if you noticed a mistake or have any questions or suggestions. But besides that, thank you guys so much for watching, and keep biking.